Stepdads be simps.
If we really feel it. It's the ones we don't like. We make them do it all.
So you ain't like your husband.
Disrespect.
I ain't trying to embarrass my husband even more on the internet, but he was a simp and I seen the opportunity and I took it.
Well, I'm saying what his qualities was.
I mean, for one, he accepted the fact that I have 3 kids.
So you got 3 kids too?
I have 3 children. Do a lot if we really feeling you. It's the ones we don't like. We make them do it all.
Oof.
So,
wow. Hold on. First of all, who are these people? Do you know who these people are?
I have no idea. Apparently, she goes viral for saying wild stuff every so often. But
Yeah, that's wild.
I guess her biggest followers on TikTok. I am not in these TikTok streets, so I couldn't tell you much about her. What I can tell you, though, look, man, I heard the coldest thing when I was in my 20s. Friend of mine, he's very fortunate with women. I'm going to just put it that way. Like the things that he could get away with saying and doing, and it works for him. Like I could never be like that. But one of the coldest things he told me, and I'll never forget this, women have 2 sets of rules. They got rules for the ninja that they actually like. Then they got the rules for your ass. So that's what I'm seeing when I'm looking at her. Like, I'm more so, and I don't even have any sympathy for the dude. Let me keep it a buck, because I know he saw this video. I know he heard or saw this video, and he probably knew what he was getting into when he married her. So guys like that, and I believe a woman will show you who she is before you make any moves with her. And either he wasn't paying attention or he was and he just didn't care.
Yeah. So it's so crazy that she took pride and, you know, she knew he was a simp and he is taking care of the kids. Like, we are far removed from the days where, you know, a man would step into a situation where, doesn't have any kids, but he married a woman, or he's involved with a woman who has kids from different fathers, or kids, or I mean, 1 or 2 kids or whatever it is. That guy used to be revered. That guy, I felt like that guy was revered. Maybe I watched too much TV shows or something where it wasn't the case. But I feel like, you know, back in the 70s, 80s, that was something that was revered, something that was like, hey, you know, that guy is stepping up, where the father dipped out or whatever the case is. And I'm not trying to bash fathers on why they're not there or anything, because there's a lot of situations there. But people coming in there and thinking that, you know, you can just get on the internet and just say, hey, my boyfriend is a simp. That is not a great term. Like, I got a funny story to that. We're going to talk a little more about this, but that is not an endearing term that men want to hear or gladly accept.
Yeah. And for the record, I don't think stepdads are simps, but I do think you need to assess the situation properly before you make that decision. There's a lot of considerations to be made. For example, this woman has 3 kids. Mind you, I ain't been on the scene in a minute, but if I meet a woman who's got 3 kids, I'm going to do a deeper dive and see what the situation is. Like, if all those kids are by the same dude, I'm probably going to give a little bit more grace than somebody who's shooting 3 for 3. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're shooting 3 for 3, or even 2 for 3, now you got to start asking questions of, okay, how wise is she? How smart is she with the box and how she's distributing the box? So I don't care what any guy tells you. I know body count is not as big of a deal for you as it is for me, TR, but there is some value in a woman who knows how to properly manage what's between her legs and what type of environment she's creating for her kids. And I think stuff like that needs to be considered when you make your decisions.
Yeah. And when it comes, and for the new people that see this, the reason I say body count's not a big deal, because I'm not trying to wife them. Like,
yeah, that matters.
I ain't trying to wife. I ain't trying to know about your body count like that. I just hope that you're not a corn star or you got an OF or something, and you know, just that, because I'm past that point where marriage is probably going to be an option for me, and not because I'm getting older, but because the more I see some of these people crash out over their husbands and wives. There was a story where a woman was on some church mission or whatever, and with her husband, and they have like 3 or 4 kids, whatever it is. But she started hooking up with the security guard, and they came up with a plot to, pretty much delete her husband. So, and she got arrested along with 3 other people, including the lover, got arrested. And all for what? All for just because you want to change the scenery. You blew up your family just so you can. And I've seen women and men, but primarily women. I'm not happy and blow up their families for less. So I ain't about to be in that 40 getting married and then having a divorce type of situation because I mean, for the most part, when it comes to me dating people, I'm generally probably dating women with kids. It's hard, even in your 40s, it's hard to date someone who does not have kids.
Oh
Or
yeah.
someone who just got a divorce. And so I'm okay with that. Like if you got kids, I'm okay with it. Ideally, I probably like your kids a little bit older, but sometimes that can present challenges. So, but proudly saying your husband is a simp, that's not a good look. Not a good look at all.
Hey, when did men become so comfortable with being disrespected by women? Like, when did this change happen? I've heard there was once a time where a man wouldn't stand for something like this,
Yeah.
but that's kind of throwing me off. But so I have one friend who's a millionaire, and I'll never forget this story. That's the same one that told me about the women having 2 separate rules, by the way.
Hmm.
He was also engaged at one point. But the wedding got broke off because she had 2 kids from a previous relationship. She was receiving child support. He told her, if I marry you, you need to take them off of child support. Because I guess she told him, the father didn't want to be active and be around. And she was just so used to receiving it every month, it was pushback. She didn't understand where he was going with it. But essentially, he was telling her, if I'm marrying you, your kids are coming in under my protection too. I will provide for them. I will give them what they need. I don't want another man's money influencing my house. But she looked at it as, why would I turn down this extra money that's coming in? So she made the decision. Mind you, she knew what his net worth was. She made the decision that her receiving her child support was more important than establishing this relationship with this guy that she had been dating for 2 years. So I don't know, man. Child support is a cold game, and I think as we get further and further into the Trump administration, I think we're gonna see some significant changes in the way child support is capped and set for people, and it's gonna be interesting to see how people shift when that happens.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, if men wanted to change child support rules, guidelines, and family court laws, they would have done it by now. Ninjas ain't never going to change it. Ninjas are going to be on here complaining, and I understand it. I've been through it. It is a cold, brutal game that has been on everybody's neck since the 90s. So for the men that thinking that child support needs to, we got to change it, blah blah blah, that shit ain't going to change. Like since like the 90s, I can't name them exactly, but I'm aware of like at least 10 laws that have been in favor of women. I mean, you have some laws that if you assault a woman for whatever the reason, you will be charged. There'll be an additional charge. Like this is getting in, or some states have that law. It's not for everybody, but or even DV situations where somebody has to go to jail. Generally, that's going to be the guy going to jail. So for the men, that it's just not going to change, unfortunately. And it's probably has something more to do with like you said, when the men become soft about the women saying things, because it's the same time when the laws became more restrictive on men if they end up like doing something that creates I don't know, maybe a dangerous environment. Not that it'd be their fault though, because there's a lot of conversation situations that could have happened that led up to it, which we don't have the time to get into. But unfortunately, it's just not going to be a feasible thing. And but I think for most men,
Before you shift, I gotta
yeah.
push back with that a little bit. So the reason why I'm optimistic that there will be change is
Mhm.
RFK. The reason why RFK, and I think Trump realized this too, RFK was winning over a lot of black men voters because he was having barbershop conversations
Yeah.
And he was always talking about how the family courts needed to be revamped and how there needs to be equal advantages for men and women walking into a marriage. I think he went over a lot of men in that regard, and I think he's going to influence the Trump administration in that regard as well. I don't think the federal government gets too heavily involved in family custody and child support cases. I think the states manage most of that, but I think there might be a change coming in that regard. I think Florida is the state to look at. I think we're going to model some of the things that Florida and Texas are starting to do.
Yeah, no, it would definitely be. I mean, whatever happens, yeah, all for it though. So if there is administration that can get some of it done or start pushing some of those ideas, this would be the administration that can do it. I don't see any other administration doing anything like that. I see them going the opposite way of creating additional laws, which some of the laws I can agree with, like if somebody leaks your sexy photos on the internet, I get it. Hey, that you definitely want something like that. You want some type of law, because a lot of times it is generally due to an ex-lover, and you want to have that you want to have that type of law protecting people. Unfortunately, there's only a handful of states that have a law like that. So, but other than that, though, I mean, yeah. So it'll be interesting. It's funny. I was like, when the simp conversation came up, there was a story, not story. I was out over the weekend with some friends, and there was a girl I was talking to, and she was telling me about her boyfriend. I was already about to like just walk away, but I was like, oh, this is actually going to be interesting then. So let's see what happens. And so she's telling me that she actually enjoys that her boyfriend is a simp. And I looked at her, I'm like, what do you mean? What? Like, women do not understand that being called a simp, no guy wants to be called a simp. That's like calling a woman the C word. Like, I don't know. I don't know what way. That's the only thing I can think of. I have never heard a woman ever say that I'm the C word. And we have to say the C word because YouTube. But yeah, she was ecstatic. She's like a traveling nurse, and she was going to be moving somewhere soon. But I was like, well, what about your relationship? Like, oh, he's gonna follow me there. And I was like, and I told her like, well, he's gonna find out. And she's like, find out what? I was like, no, he'll find out. And she's like, what? What is he going to find out? And
that she doesn't respect him. That's what he's about to find out. And it's going to be a rude awakening. I'm gonna just add this, and it does tie. I'm gonna bring it back to the stepdaddy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's what I've learned. This is just my own evidence and explanations, right? There's a very thin line between a good man and a simp. And that's why if you are a good man of high moral value and code, you have to do your proper due diligence to make sure that whoever you're with doesn't simplify you. Case in point, a good man who wants to lead his family is going to provide for that family. But you owe it to yourself to do due diligence to make sure that she's not using you or manipulating you and actually cares about you and ain't just trying to get you for everything that you have, including your masculinity. And that's where it gets lost with the stepdads. I think if you opt to be a stepdad, kudos to you, man. That's probably a thankless job sometimes. You stepping in and doing something that somebody else didn't want to do, but you need to make sure that she actually loves you and she's not just using you as a resource for her kids or as a temporary stepping stone until she leaps to something better. You owe it to yourself to do that kind of background check and due diligence at least.
Yeah. Most of them don't love you like that. I hate to break it to some folks, and this is not a diss on stepdads or stepmoms or whatever. It was funny. Kamala was a stepmom, but people forget about that. Being a stepdad is probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in a relationship, and it can be difficult. But I mean, there are some good things. I mean, you'll probably get some great sex, but there's a reason why there's not a guy there. There's a reason why that guy, if that guy didn't want to be there, there's probably a conversation there. But one of the things that I did learn, like when it comes to being with a woman with kids, I never take the exact reason why the father isn't there. I asked them about who the father, or not who the father is. I don't give a shit unless that father's, somebody in my circle or something. But I never ask him like, I asked him like, oh, what happened with you in the past relationship? And depending on how she responds to that question, tells me all I need to know. How 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 the rest of the relationship can go, or if I'm gonna be serious about this. Because if she's like just going in and talking a lot of crap about the father, I'm like, oh crap. Because there was a couple times where I was with somebody and they told me the situation with their kids' fathers, and I saw exactly what she was talking about, and I'm like, man, this is exactly, I bet how those guys had felt or whatnot. So it definitely gives you a heads up on what's going on. But I mean, it can be a rewarding experience, especially, I feel bad for the kids that grow up without fathers. Having a father that step in that role, or a male figure step in that role and be there for your kid. I mean, you would think that would be something that a lot of women appreciate, but they don't appreciate that because even if the kids love you, whatever the case is, dog love you, the parents love you. If she falls out of favor with you, you're gone. Like, they're ready to boot you out, and you have no access to the kids. You don't get to say goodbye. You don't get to do anything. So definitely be careful, men, when you get out there. And women, you got to start understanding that these men, like, sometimes it's easy just to delete them and block them, but you should really think about how your kids are going to feel. Because if we're talking about a situation where you're just upset over a dumb situation, whatever the case is, you should probably look past that. Because it's important to have a male figure in your kid's life, or especially if you got sons. This is really more
No, they both need them. The little girls need it too. Absolutely.
Right. But I think it's more detrimental if the sons don't have that male figure, especially in, say, a household full of women, or maybe they don't have any male role models in there. Like, they can always learn from the daughters, can generally learn from the women, but the sons, they got nobody to learn from.
Hey, if you, this is probably the last thing I would say about this, because it kind of ties in. If you are considering becoming a stepfather, I highly suggest you ask this question. Ask her, without mentioning your ex, tell me why your last relationship ended. And the not mentioning your ex part is clutch, because what it's going to do is it's going to tell me how she critically thinks. Is she going to take accountability for anything, or is she going to skip that part of the question and keep blaming him for everything anyway?
Yeah.
Because what I've learned about people is all those people that say, oh, I did everything I was supposed to do, that was all his fault. I would say 9 times out of 10, they're lying.
Oh, yeah.
And you can easily point that out by just seeing how they react and squirm to answering that type of question.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Let's jump to the next topic.